The sunlight filtering through the bay windows of the 72-year-old study cast long, precise shadows across the drafting table. Elias Thorne, a man whose name was synonymous with modern ethical architecture, did not look his age. His silver hair was still thick, his posture ramrod straight, and the blueprint in his hands was for a future he was still very much a part of. The blueprint belonged to the Ethelred Tower, a $500 million, 80-story monument to sustainable urban design, his final grand vision. And it was this vision that had been weaponized against him. You look deep in thought, Elias. The voice belonged to Vivian Shaw. She was Elias's protégé, his adopted intellectual heir, and the only person he had ever trusted with the keys to his empire. He had taken her in 15 years ago, a brilliant, ambitious graduate with a fierce passion for his work. He saw in her the daughter he never had. "I am merely reviewing, my dear," Elias said, folding the plans. "Every beam, every stress point. Ethelred must be perfect. It will be the capstone of my life's work. And yours." Vivian smiled, a radiant, confident smile that Elias now knew to be a mask. "It will be Elias. I've insured it." A week ago, Elias had received an anonymous, encrypted message from a disillusioned former employee. A single, heavily compressed file containing a revised structural design for the tower's core. The file detailed a systematic and deeply insidious design flaw introduced into the structural support of the building's central vertical shear wall, the very spine of the skyscraper. It wasn't a flaw that would cause an immediate catastrophic collapse. It was far more cruel. The flaw was designed to manifest years after completion, triggered by a specific, cyclical thermal expansion common to high-rise structures. It would create microfractures, rendering the tower structurally unsound and forcing an evacuation and demolition order. Vivian's goal wasn't to kill people. Thorne Architectural Ethics Foundation. He sits now in his study, looking at the city. The Foundation's first initiative is a scholarship program that sends young, ethical architects to building sites to learn the difference between structural design and moral integrity. He realized his true legacy was never Ethelred Tower. It was the students who would now enter the industry knowing that an architect's work is not measured by the height of their buildings, but by the depth of their character. He took the desire for destruction and turned it into a foundation for creation. He built a better future, brick by painstaking ethical brick. Of the complete structural demolition and rebuild, effective immediately. The murmurs in the room exploded. City officials started shouting. The reporters' cameras flashed wildly, but they were no longer aimed at Ethelred. They were aimed at Vivian. Vivian turned to Elias, her face a mask of shock and blazing fury. "You planned this. The concrete. It was your supplier. You set me up." Elias looked at her, his eyes cold and ancient. "You used cheap concrete in a housing project, Vivian. Not for a flaw, but for $1. You gambled on people's safety for profit. That is a flaw of character." He leaned closer, so only she could hear the next words. "And I know about the Ethelred flaw too. I know about the microfractures, and I know about the titanium safety hatch. You didn't want to kill me. You wanted to erase me. I could have sent you to prison for a very long time for that." Vivian staggered back, utterly defeated. The full, cold scope of his knowledge crushed her. "Instead," Elias finished, his voice cutting through the noise, "I chose to destroy only what you chose to build. Your own career." Vivian was immediately swarmed by the press and legal teams. She had lost Olympus. The $90 million debt was hers, and her reputation was instantly and irrevocably annihilated. She left the building an hour later in the back of a black sedan, not under arrest, but professionally extinct. That was 2 years ago. Elias never spoke to her again. Today, Ethelred Tower stands complete, a jewel on the skyline. The structural flaw was discreetly corrected by a trusted, silent team. The safety hatch cables remain in the design, a secret reminder of the peril they narrowly avoided. Elias is finally retired. He didn't sell his company, he converted it into the Olympus project, without reading the small print. The small print, which Elias had prepared with Clara, was a legal time bomb. It was a single-line clause in the final acquisition contract stating that the purchasing entity, Vivian Shell Company, was personally and fully liable for the immediate and comprehensive remediation of any and all existing structural and safety defects in the project, as certified by an independent, third-party audit performed. Now, as Vivian put the pen down, Elias did not applaud. He merely nodded to Clara, who was sitting in the front row. Clara stood up and walked to the podium. In her hand was a different blue folder. "Ladies and gentlemen," Clara announced, her voice calm and clear. "My name is Clara Vance, representing the independent auditor team for Thorne Architecture. We have just completed a deep-dive forensic audit on the Olympus Residences project." Vivian's smile faltered. Clara opened her file. The audit reveals that the main structural concrete mixture used in floors 12 through 20 of Olympus Residences is not to code. The required PSI strength is 6,000. The concrete used is barely 3,500. This project is a safety hazard, a fraud, and legally, it is a write-off. And as Ms. Shaw has just personally affirmed in writing, Clara tapped the signed document. She is now fully and solely liable for the $90 million cost. She was confident, she was celebrated, and most dangerously for her, she was becoming careless. Meanwhile, Elias engaged a discreet team of forensic engineers and legal auditors, led by a quiet woman named Clara who had once worked for the IRS. Clara's instructions were simple. "I don't care about the flaw in Ethelred. I care about the flaws in her contracts." The report started coming in. Vivian, believing she was untouchable, was cutting corners on her new projects to maximize personal profit. She was using cheaper, non-certified concrete in mid-level housing projects, bribing city inspectors for rapid sign-offs, and running shell companies to funnel kickbacks from suppliers. These were not the actions of a grand schemer. They were the desperate, short-sighted thefts of an insecure mind trying to keep pace with an oversized ambition. The contracts were a complex web, but Elias had taught Clara well. The day of the signing came 8 months after the anonymous warning. It was the celebratory press event for Ethelred Tower, but more importantly, the day Vivian was scheduled to sign the final, controlling legal documents for her own new, massive, and highly leveraged housing development, the Olympus Residences. The grand ballroom was filled with city officials, press, and industry titans. Elias stood on stage with Vivian, the epitome of the proud mentor. "My friends," Elias announced, his voice steady. "Today we celebrate Ethelred, yes. But we also celebrate the future. A future embodied by my partner, Vivian Shaw." Vivian beamed. She felt the spotlight, the power. She believed she had won. Elias then handed her a thick, unmarked blue folder. "Vivian, as a final gesture of faith, I want you to officially take control of Olympus. Sign the last of these papers now, on the stage. Let everyone see the new leadership of Thorne Architecture." Vivian's eyes were glittering with triumph. She took the pen and signed the first document, a large, beautiful rendering of the. It was far more personal. She wanted to humiliate Elias, to utterly destroy the legacy he was leaving behind, making his final building a symbol of catastrophic failure. She would then step in, seemingly clean, to inherit the contracts and the narrative, proving herself the true visionary after the old master's ruin. But the file contained one critical anomaly: a hastily added secondary system of titanium reinforcement cables, a safety hatch, designed to catch the shear wall just before the point of total failure. It was proof that Vivian's ambition was greater than her malice. She wanted the shame, not the body count. She wanted to destroy his reputation, not the lives he sought to protect. Elias had immediately dismissed the idea of going to the police or the board. That would lead to a public inquiry, dragging his name, his company, and his entire life's philosophy through a scandal. His legacy would be defined by the betrayal. "No," he had decided, sitting alone in the dark office. "I will not give her the quick end she desires. My correction must be as meticulous as her sabotage." He knew exactly what she wanted: to be the star. He decided to let her shine, right up until the moment her spotlight exploded. Over the next 6 months, Elias initiated Phase 1, the embrace. He retreated slightly, playing the part of the weary, aging mentor. He praised Vivian constantly, publicly naming her the lead architect on all upcoming projects. He told her he was pulling back, relying on her to handle the technical complexities of Ethelred. He even sold her a minority stake in the company at a generous price. Vivian soared. She became the darling of the industry press, giving interviews where she modestly talked about carrying Elias's torch into the future.